a lot of young men that reach out to me, they struggle with dating, they struggle with getting a girlfriend in general. And so they're trying to start off from a good place. Like they're kind of building up a skill set and learning all this stuff so that when they do get a long-term partner, rather than just having a casual date here and there, when they do get a girlfriend or a wife, they're able to, kind of deliver the goods, so to speak, with that woman. And then the guys who tend to be a bit older, like maybe 30 years plus or whatever, they've got a bit more experience than these younger guys, obviously, but they're coming from a place of wanting to learn a few new tricks, wanting to add some tools to their toolkit to add to their relationship.
Do you think that's true though? Do you think that, masculine men, the sex skill is developed from an age perspective, or do you think that this is from an experience or, I don't know, I guess survival of the fittest, right? Perspective.
Well, it's an experience thing, yes. You can learn one woman's body very well through having a long-term relationship with that woman. And what a lot of guys tend to find is that they'll be in a relationship with one girl for years, and then they'll find themselves single again, and they're trying to get out in the dating marketplace and meet new women and trying to learn a new partner's body. There's a learning curve there, and I can try to help them overcome that.
Yeah.
Because just through my breadth of experience, you could say, I've seen a lot of different women's bodies, and I've seen the similarities.
Right.
I've seen the things that are more similar, and I've seen the things that tend to vary a bit more. So I'm able to help guide them a little bit. So it's not necessarily an age thing, it is an experience thing. But again, that experience could be with just one woman, or that could be with a breadth of women.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, because I mean, I've been with men, that are older, and sometimes, the outcome or performance isn't as experienced as someone that might be younger, right? And so I don't know if it's so much based on age as much as it is perhaps the amount of relationships they've been in or how many encounters they've had.
I hope one day to be out of business. If I'm doing my job correctly, I will be flat out of business very shortly.
Okay. Well, but that would mean that on the contrary, right? Men seem to be a little bit more in the giving, perhaps, right? They have a little bit more responsibility when it comes to the sphere of intimacy. So what do you think that as a man, that responsibility needs to be?
That's a very interesting question, because the answer is kind of paradoxical. And I'll explain. So if a guy goes into a sexual interaction with this woman and he puts all this pressure on himself, he needs a certain outcome. Let's say he needs his woman to orgasm. His entire sexual ego, his entire self-esteem, his sense of self-worth, his identity almost is tied up in his ability to get his woman to orgasm. Well, that is a recipe for disaster, because all he's doing is putting a ton of pressure on himself, and he's setting himself up for failure in a way like that. Also, a woman will feel that energy coming off of him. She will notice that instantly. If a man is desperate to achieve a certain outcome with her, and guess what that does? That puts her in her head. And it makes it almost impossible for her to orgasm, because she's up here, she's self-conscious, she's anxious, she's a bit nervous, she's picking off that energy from him, and she's not present and in the moment and relaxed and calm and in an aroused state.
Which women need to be in the state of.
Exactly. Yeah. So the state he should be in is almost like a carefree, calm, confident arousal.
Okay.
That's the ideal state of mind a man should be entering the bedroom in, because if he's in a calm, confident state of arousal, again, what she feels, he feels, and vice versa. So he's going to lead her into that emotional space of feeling calm, which is what a woman wants to feel when she's in the bedroom with a guy. He's feeling confident, so she's feeling safe. She can trust him to lead her through a sexual experience.
Right.
And he's feeling aroused, so she's going to be feeling aroused and sexual in that way. So I think calm, confident arousal is the ideal state of mind for a man to go into the bedroom with.
Okay. Do you feel that there is a specific mentality that a man goes through before, like even before all of that? Like, let's say, you're working with a new client. Do you feel like there's a certain mentality that men kind of go into before they start making love?
A lot of them will initially feel a sense of pressure.
I see.
They'll feel like they have to perform, which is true in and of itself. Like, the pressure is on them to perform, but it's not good to think about that. It's very counterintuitive. A lot of guys genuinely really want to please their partner.
Yeah.
Which is the whole reason why I have a YouTube channel in the first place.
True.
I wouldn't have any views and any followers if men actually didn't give a shit about this. There's a lot of guys out there who genuinely get off on getting their woman off, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. So I think they're coming from that place, but they might not necessarily know exactly how to navigate the female roadmap, shall we say. They're not entirely sure which buttons to press. They're not entirely confident in, say, executing a new technique or a new sex position or trying something new. And so that's kind of where people like you and me come in, help them to go into that interaction a bit more confident.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, trust me, Stirling, you're doing God's work. Okay, I don't think you need me to say it.
I've heard that a lot. That specific phrase, I hear that a lot.
No, you are.
The kind of default, the natural default across like the average population is for the man to be more in his masculine, the woman to be more in the feminine, and you call it the receiving energy, which I would agree with. That's it's a submissive, receiving kind of place that you want to be in. And a lot of women in today's day are kind of forced more into their masculine energy in their day-to-day lives. They're out, they're grinding, they're hustling, they're working 9-to-5 jobs, they're very, very busy. They've got to make making all these decisions, right? They're responsible for things, right? More so than say our grandparents were. And that puts them very much in their masculine. And what I've found is that those women in particular, maybe not necessarily if they're CEOs, but they still feel very much in their masculine energy all day. They want nothing more than to come home to a man who is in his masculine and puts her back in her feminine where she can feel safe and comfortable, and she can kind of switch off for a bit and relax in that intimate scenario.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. When I was working as a male escort, as a high-class companion, a lot of the women I had as clients, they were high-powered CEOs. They ran like multi-million-dollar companies. They were, in top-tier managerial positions, things like this. And they would hire a guy like me specifically so they could relax, specifically so they didn't have to have responsibility, so they could relinquish control for an evening, so they could let me take care of everything, let me order the wine, let me order her food, open the door for her. Like little things like this that let her fall back into her feminine once in a while. And I had a few friends back in Australia when I was in this industry who were female dominatrixes. And all of their clients, all of them, were the kind of guys who are getting pegged, kind of guys who are getting a cigarette put out on their balls. These dudes are all CEOs or top tier managerial position guys who all day they are wound up, they are stressed out to the nth degree, and it becomes a fetish for them to let go because they're never letting go their whole life.
Wow, it's a
even
fetish.
Even if they're in a relationship with a regular woman, like I'm not talking about this girl they've hired. They're in a relationship with a normal woman. She expects him to still be masculine. She expects him to stay in that masculine role so she can be her feminine. But all day, all night, every hour of every day, he's high stress like this. And so those kind of guys will hire a dominatrix to flip that script on his head for a bit so he can just let go for an evening.
So you think that's, wow, okay, so that's a new perspective for me. So instead of it becoming like this, almost like accepting part of, their, I guess just accepting, this switch position, you think that it's an actual fetish?
Well, these guys particularly would fetishize it because these guys would have a wife or a girlfriend at home who, and this is just going like through my friends who were dominatrixes, this is what they were telling me.
Right.
So they would have had a partner at home where they would, fulfill the normal like masculine polarity, feminine polarity, and the guy would fetishize giving that up, relinquishing that control, relinquishing all that authority, and putting himself in a submissive position for a dominatrix.
So I will be the first to admit that the idea of hiring a male escort has surfaced once or maybe more than once in my life.
I know an agency here in LA, so just
do you? Oh, okay.
They're very good. A friend of mine actually works for them. So,
well, not now. I mean, I haven't thought about it for the last. I haven't thought about it for the last 4 years, but there was a phase, a very, very, very high. It was one of the most stressful years of my life. Going into this topic, it kind of births this question that I have for you, because you're a man that has seen the extremity of what people lack, the absence of intimacy.
Yep.
And I think the common denominator for a lot of what you do is you help people evolve into becoming people that can control these outcomes so that they're not living so lonely, right? And so my question to you is what is your perspective on women, having a high body count?
So in the porn industry in particular, obviously there's, due to the nature of the work, right, there's a lot of women in that industry who are able to compartmentalize sex and intimacy separately. Right. Kind of in a way that men naturally tend to do. Whereas women, on average, the average woman, run-of-the-mill woman, tends to link intimacy and a lot of emotion and love with the act of sex. Women who've been in porn a lot or who've been in that industry and have been successful in it because they're able to compartmentalize those two things and separate them a lot. Yeah. And at least from my understanding of it, a lot of it has to do with oxytocin release, because one of the biggest reasons for women to fall in love, and what we call the scientific term for that being pair bonding, comes from an overwhelming release of oxytocin in their brain, which happens during the act of sex. It happens, and orgasm in particular.
Wow.
It happens in other things like cuddling on the couch, doing meaningful activities together, acts of service, these kind of things do release oxytocin as well. But a big dump of oxytocin happens during the female orgasm, during the act of sex. And that is very, very often what will cause a woman to fall in love with a man. If you take a woman who's a virgin, not all the time, but very often, she will get very strong feelings for the first man she sleeps with.
I see.
That's a very, very natural response, right? What tends to happen, what I have observed tends to happen is the more sexual partners a woman has, the more she's able to sort of, those two aspects of her, the love and affection side of her and the physical sexual side of her, can start to be separated a bit. And she has the capacity to separate those two things.
When she has more sex.
When she's had more sex.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That tends to be, that is the observation I have seen.
Yeah. And do you think that is a good thing?
It's a thing. Depends what you want out of life. So I think the reason for that is because what happens, the more sexual partners she has, she tends to have less of an oxytocin release from the act of sex itself.
I see.
And then her oxytocin releases tend to come from more of the intimate things like, cuddling, spending more time together, quality time together, doing things with each other. Those non-sexual activities have produce more oxytocin release and more pair bonding effect for her than the act of sex itself.